Hi, everyone, and welcome to Linked Events 101. I'm Sean Spediacci, Senior Product Marketer, focused on our data warehouse interoperability story. As you might have already went through when you saw our Linked Audiences 101 and training, you'll notice that we are enabling a new kind of composability around the warehouse stack. And one of those things is our linked events feature. Linked events does take advantage of our data graph solution, similar to linked audiences, but they have two different purposes of what they enable. So let's jump into it and talk about what we're launching. Um, First up is just describing what life is like for customers before we launch linked events. It was possible to pull data out of the warehouse, but it was a little bit of a workaround. You had things like accounts, roles, companies, households, all the different entities that we've been talking about with respect to linked audiences and the data graph. They were available to pull and enrich website events, but you had to build a function. And this function basically polled your warehouse and then enriched events based off of certain facets and event parameters. It was a clunky workaround, and it wasn't necessarily as seamless as what we're designing today. So the goal being, I want to enrich my events. I need access to data in the warehouse to do so. How do I do that before sending it to a downstream destination? I had to build that function. Now with linked events, customers are able to save on real-time implementation costs. So the goal being, I need to be able to enrich my events in near real time, which is what the purpose of our event streaming system does. It creates events and then filters and does all the goodness that we know with our connections product, and then distributes it downstream to our supported destinations. Now, instead of having to build a function and then pull your warehouse and then ensure that the data is correct and moving through, we can already build on top of the data graph today. So it makes it much faster to implement this solution for customers. And what this does is it unlocks that precise personalization with rich events. So real-time events have always powered communication downstream channels, but linked events enables just that little bit more where we can add additional details around entities to these events so that way the downstream destinations that are receiving the event have access to more personalized data sets. And then ultimately, this is just faster time to value end to end when we're trying to activate use cases. So it's simple to set up for data engineers, and then marketers can then take advantage of that in their desired tools, or technical marketers are able to enrich events themselves if they're able to access the segment platform. Now, let's talk about those key features. The key feature is obviously the data graph. This is already GA today, and the data graph is what customers will be first and foremost using. In fact, we do see linked events as kind of like an entry use case for customers to set up their data graph. So while the intent of linked events is not to map all of your data sets. It is just to cache certain tables for enriching events. Setting up the data graph is a prerequisite, which means that they do need to map out all of their entities and relationships on in the software, but they don't necessarily need profile sync. Profile sync is not the requirement here. So that's the biggest difference with the data graph implementation for linked events. Um, where linked audiences does require the profile sync to then send the profiles and then map the relationships between data. Linked events just needs to know which data exists within the warehouse. And so it's a slight difference in implementation for that data graph usage. Now, linked events itself, what we see here is that it's taking an already existing event, and let's say, for example, this is the video watched event, and it's keeping the properties that are passed through very slim. So it's only taking the game ID and the user ID. And then what it's additionally doing is pulling data from the warehouse using that game ID and then saying, okay, here's the home team, here's the away team, here's the current score for both the home and away team. And what they're able to do is send a event through the Braze system utilizing all of this data. So we started out with just video watched and game ID and user ID, but with linked events, we were able to do so much more by pulling data and enriching it and putting all those properties into a downstream system like Braze. So data teams will save time ultimately in coding because they're not having to build functions for every single new enrichment that they're doing and new data that needs to be accessed. All of this data gets mapped once in the data graph and then enables it to be enriched inside of the segment platform for that seamless experience. And next up, we'll do some use case overview. And we're going to blend a little bit of use case overview of what we saw in the beta with customer stories. But first, I do want to talk about some key use cases outside of that. And the first thing is marketing. Marketing, we saw things like notification and retention, how you can send personalized messages to users based off of account subscriptions or product information associated with a profile. So a customer will come in and view a certain page or product ID, and then we're able to pass along additional details into that event property, like referral codes, referral ID, whatever it might be, if that's you're doing a referral use case. And then you're able to also add things like product cost and product IDs and product name. All of that can be added to the event. So that way marketing can do things like upsells and cross sells or any kind of retention play. For services and support, you can do things like enriching the event of which the website that the customer is viewing and the products that they're viewing, and in making sure that support has this data inside of their tools. And so when support is pulling up information on the customer, they can see details like product information or where they're struggling with an error code or something like that. All of this can be enriched in real time so that way customer support has the data that they need at their fingertips. And I kind of jumped ahead of myself here, but referrals is another thing that you could do. You could do attribution enrichment. So we'll go into a use case in a second here, but essentially if a customer refers another customer and gives a code, you'll be able to pass that along and then enrich based off of that referral code because we could associate it with a user ID and let them know that, yes, a customer has had a successful referral and you get a certain amount of credit or points based off of that referral. And then finally, for sales, this is another use case we'll be getting into, account buying groups engagement. So maybe a customer fills out a contact us form, and then we want to know, are they a part of a buying group or are they just part of that company? This is only things that we would know because we have really up-to-date information in our CRM, which gets synced to our warehouse. So we want to enrich an event and then send emails based off of, are they a part of a certain group or not? And this is all possible with linked events, and we can do this in real time as we're enriching the event. So let's jump into some of those customer stories and use cases. The important one here, the first one up is Yes Networks. Yes Networks is a great company, great customer of ours, based in New York, works with the Yankees and the New York Nets and some other teams. I'm forgetting out there. I'm believing the Mets as well. But for those who are New York based, I'm sure you know and love the Yes Network. It is your dedicated network for watching the major sports teams in the New York area. They started by trying to um, track subscriber started events. And this is that referral enrichment use case. So you can see that an event is subscription started. We know the new user ID that just started that event, but we also have a referral code. And so this referral code can then be matched to referral codes of customers that have been referred. So I'm able to then pull out a new user ID and associate them with the referral success event, and then add new points to their total, which can then be spent in the Yes Network store. So, I mean, I don't necessarily need to know that at the event side when a subscription first started, but I can enrich that event and then send that downstream and then send two separate emails or mobile notifications letting a customer know that one, that they've had a successful account sign up, and then two, that the referral bonus points are now a total of 250 points. So let's say it's 50 per referral. So they started at 200 and now we're moving, adding new referral points, and they have 250 in their account now available for spending. This is possible with linked events because we can match details from the event to data in the warehouse. Now, the next one is Siemens. Siemens is a great company. They have a various different businesses that we work with them across, but one of them is that they needed to enrich contact us data with data around, is this user a part of a buying group? Because that truly depends on the message that they're sending and how they engage with customers. So if you do a contact us form, we know your user ID, and we are associating you with a specific account ID as well. And we are verifying what is the industry. Do we know the industry? Do we have a certain template that we want to send out for that? And is this person a known person that is a part of a buying group, a known buying group within this industry or and company? If yes, we want to send a very specific email that gets triggered out to our customers and let them know that they have an account team available to reach out to and work with. And then we also want to know the account, let the account team know that there is a contact us from a very specific buying group. So we could send very specific messages to two different people based off that. And obviously, this example in the graph is missing details like the company name and the account rep name and details, but all of that can be passed along because we're pulling that data from the warehouse. And the idea that I just want you to leave with is the original event doesn't necessarily need to have all the details in front and all the properties. We can then reference our warehouse data that we've cached and then see if we can enrich that event before distributing it downstream. Additionally, customers are asking us to look into the possibility of not sending an event downstream unless it's been enriched. So to retry once that data has been enriched. This is something we're looking into and the team is looking into, but is a possibility for the future if that's a core requirement of the customer.